The following podcast you're about to listen to is brought to you by the Push Start Media Network, where everything you do in life begins with pushing start. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of SYE Quick Hits. I am your humble host, Bryce Benjamin, along with my guy, Ed Rueter. And on today's episode, we are beginning our NL East breakdown season preview, I should say. And today, we're going to be talking about the Little Brothers team in the New York area there. We know them as the New York Metropolitans, a.k.a. the New York Mets. And Mets had a pretty decent season last year. They finished third in the NL with a 86-76 record. But hopefully they're looking to put it together this season and potentially come out as the top dog in the NL East and try to get to a World Series. Ed, what's your overall thoughts on this New York Mets team in 2020?
This New York Mets team, I feel like, is going to be very similar to the last few New York Mets teams, which is if they can stay healthy, they're going to be contenders. That's been the word on them for a long time. I feel like Mets fans have been frustrated by a couple of things. Sadly enough, former pitching coach for the Cleveland Indians, Mickey Callaway, was their manager for the last few years. Mm-hmm. And as much success as he had as a pitching coach with Cleveland, he was just as bad with the Mets as a manager. People hated him. He was not a popular manager. He seemed to make some poor decisions on, who to play on what day, who to bring in from the bullpen. Just mismanagement of the roster a little bit, mixed with the misfortune of some untimely injuries, and that kind of is why that 86-win season was a bit of a letdown for them last year.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, poor decisions, injuries, that can hurt any franchise. It kind of sucks. But, hey, they may be able to bounce back this upcoming season. And, Mets fans should be pretty excited, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think they have more to be excited about this year, even in years past. Last year, even through some of the disappointment, they had some really amazing breakout stars emerge. Pete Alonso broke the rookie record for home runs with 53. People think that he is the real deal, not just one of those blips on the radar that kind of came in and surprised and you're never going to hear from again. They think this guy's power is legit, and he's going to be anchoring the middle of that lineup for years to come. They also went out this year and they got Robinson Cano, who's been a great player in this league for a long time. Will probably be batting down the middle of that order.
I remember where they used to call him Robinson Can Yes.
Yeah, he's been more of a Can No the last few years, but he's former Yankee, former Mariner, and now he's with the New York Mets, along with some great young talent. So, like I've already mentioned, Pete Alonso, but they also have a guy, Michael Conforto. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a heavy swinger. You're going to see a lot of your classic new MLB style of hit a bunch of home runs, strike out a lot with Michael Conforto. But he plays a nice outfield, along with another guy in the outfield, Brandon Nimmo, who I've talked a lot about with friends and with anybody who listen. I think that this is a guy that could be one of the better young hitters in baseball. He'll be leading off for the Mets. And then, other guys mixed in. Jeff McNeil was a nice surprise in the infield for them, a guy that I think could hit 300 this year. And their lineup is very nice. There's not a lot of holes there. It's not one of the great offenses that you're going to see in the league this year, but definitely solid.
Yeah, and just go back real quick, just to touch on Pete Alonso. He had probably the greatest MLB debut we've seen. I mean, the man batted .260 with 53 home runs, like you say. He set the rookie record there, breaking Aaron Judge's by a home run there. 120 RBIs. Obviously, he was the NL Rookie of the Year. Set multiple Mets records in his first season. First Met player to ever hit 50 home runs. Set the single-season Met records for home runs, obviously. And on top of that, won the home run derby, put on a decent performance there. And the other guy that you mentioned, he said Michael Conforto, yeah. Conforto, excuse me. So he's basically looking to pick up right where he left off in 2019 because, again, batted .257, 33 home runs, and 92 RBI. So that's a nice young 1-2 punch right there.
Absolutely. They seem to be a really nice young core. They certainly have a lot of power. They're moving away from a little bit. I've said that they're kind of building into that new model where they have the home runs and the strikeouts and the low batting average. The on base might be a little bit of a problem. The high RBI totals that you saw there.
Yeah.
If they don't have guys getting on base in front of them, they might have some trouble producing some runs. But I think with Nimmo and McNeil leading off, and Alonso, J.D. Davis, Conforto, Cano, knocking those guys in, the offense will be very solid. You've got some good defensive players that round out the batting order in Wilson Ramos at catcher and Ahmed Rosario at shortstop. A little bit, you could consider them holes in the lineup, I think. So if you're looking at, there's going to be some innings where the Mets are going to struggle to score, where you've got your 7 and 8 coming up, and then don't forget in the National League, there's no designated hitter, so your pitcher's hitting. So they're going to struggle a little bit from game to game. I think the real strength of this team, though, is their pitching, which is some of the best in the National League.
Right.
It's been that way for a few years now, and again, the reason that those win totals are disappointingly low is because those pitchers have been hurt on and off. These guys have missed time, but when they're healthy, I don't think, as a matter of fact, I will put it out there that I know that I don't think there's a better 1-2 punch in baseball than Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard at the top of that rotation.
Okay. And speaking of deGrom, man, back-to-back Cy Young Award winner there. And, I mean, you just look at his numbers. That kind of speak for himself. I mean, last year he did get off to a pretty shaky start. Started off 4-7, had an ERA of 3.27. And but second half of the season, just returned to dominant form, finished off 7-1 with an ERA of 1.44 and over 117 strikeouts in that second half of the season alone. So obviously dominating numbers there. And then, of course, you said he's followed up right behind him is Noah Syndergaard. So that 1-2 punch is definitely elite.
Yep, and
capital E.
And then behind them, they've got some guys with some absolutely great potential. There's all 4'11" of Marcus Stroman, who is a guy that played for Toronto for quite a few years. The mighty might. He looks tiny out there when he's throwing. I think he's actually like 5'4" or something like that.
Yeah.
But he looks small out there. He looks really small, even out there on the hill. So. Great player though for Toronto. I always thought he could be like a front end of the rotation type of guy. Never quite put it together. Always seemed to have like one inning where he got beat up, or something where his ERA was always a little bit higher. But he just seemed like a gamer. He just seemed like somebody that could go out there, get you quality innings, get you wins. And then behind him, Steven Matz, another guy. He's battled injuries his entire career. There was a lot of talk within the Mets organization that Steven Matz would be right up there with guys like deGrom and Syndergaard. He is one that has not been able to put it together due to injury. But just a lot of promise on this Mets team. And again, these guys stay healthy. It's going to be a really fun year in New York.
That's what's up. How's their bullpen looking?
Bullpen looks strong. Edwin Diaz was a guy.
Is it?
Yeah. He was a guy that I really enjoyed watching a couple years back, where he was just absolutely unhittable.
Yeah.
The most dominant closer in baseball without question. Then he moved over to the NL to join the Mets, and I thought, wow, this is going to be incredible. A lot of times when guys move from the AL, where there's a designated hitter, to the NL, their strikeouts go up, their ERA goes up, or down, I should say, actually. Their whip goes down, and it just didn't quite happen for Edwin for whatever reason. Maybe a tough transition or something like that. But he's got a couple of former closers in their ranks as well, with Seth Lugo and Juris Familia. So I think their bullpen's going to be strong. There's Dylan Betances is out there, former Yankee. Obviously, when healthy, he's one of the top setup men in baseball. So this is just a very strong team from top to bottom. No real holes anywhere, maybe a little bit at the back end of their lineup, but this is a team that I could definitely see winning the division.
And they could possibly patch up their actual lineup with the return of Yoenis Cespedes. He can add a much needed bat to that lineup there and gives them some good production. So we can see how that plays out as he gets healthy and hopefully returns, probably more so towards May or June. But we'll see what that can do. So in terms of predictions here, Pacoda has them finishing first in the NL East with a 88-74 record. Rueter, do you agree?
Yeah, I tend to agree that you go out there and you play the ball, you play the game on the diamond. You don't play it on paper here.
Right.
It's fun to look at it on paper, and on paper, I'd have to say the New York Mets absolutely look like the strongest team in this division as a whole.
Yeah.
They're fundamentally solid across the board, but this is a team that, for whatever reason, has had struggles with injuries. They've been bitten by injuries the last few years, so I think that's kind of polluting my thoughts on them right now. But if I had to say, I'll go out there and I'll say, yes, I think the Mets finally crack through. They win their division with probably right around 90 wins.
All right, I like it. All right, perfect. Well, that is our preview, the 2020 preview for the New York Mets. And, I got them in first place potentially this upcoming season. So we will see what happens, how this plays out. Thanks again for tuning in and listening to another episode of SYE Quick Hits. And we'll be coming at you with a new episode relatively soon. Thanks for listening. Drink some water. Have a good day.